William Jackson, author, speaker, life coach, I call it. I don't know if you want to be called that or not, but you're a coach.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if guys like you like to say, hey, motivators and inspirational figures, and you can go to your website, the official WilliamJackson.com, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can go there, and there's a lot of things. That picture's looking good. The brand's looking good.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and so, we're going to talk about the book today, but I want to talk about everything that happened that caused that book to be written, too.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes, sir.
I think Cincinnati's probably special because you're born and raised. Guys like you we don't just get lucky to have guys like you in the backyard.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm serious, man. And so this book that you wrote, When Life Happens,
mm-hmm.
I want to know what brought you here.
Mm-hmm.
What caused that book to be written?
Yeah.
And why are you the William Jackson?
So, well, me affectionately, I call myself the purpose pusher. I push purpose because I believe that majority of people go to the grave without purpose ever being realized or materialized or ever fully stepped into. I was one of those who before, and I'll talk about what led up to the book, I was one of those who took moments for granted. I always believed, okay, I can do that later. I'll have the next moment. I don't have to maximize every single second because I just falsely had a sense of belief that I'll have the next one until I almost didn't. So in 2000, I had a sinus infection spread to my brain. Fluid gathered on the right side of my brain, and I start having these incredible headaches. I'm talking about migraines on steroids. I felt like when I blinked, it felt like my head was going to explode. I couldn't take deep breaths. I was everything. I couldn't have any lights on. So it took me a minute, even with all of those symptoms, to say, let me get to the hospital. So I got to the hospital, walked into the ER. And as they were doing all the paperwork, I said, I need to go to the bathroom. Got up, went to the bathroom. And as I was coming out of the bathroom, I had a stroke how I didn't even know it, but my left side was dragging. So my limbs on my left side, my foot, my arms, and I was having a stroke in the emergency room. So they rushed me in, and I had a full stroke and was completely paralyzed on the left side of my body. They told me to smile, only the right side of my face would move. They would prick my hand till it bled, wouldn't feel anything. So the prognosis was we don't know what's wrong with him. He was healthy. There was no symptoms within the bloodline. This is just one of those freak scenarios where I can't really pinpoint it. So much so that they literally had to fly a specialist in who was on vacation on a golf course. They flew him in to try to figure out what was going on with me. So, the diagnosis was I was going to die at first because it was so severe. Didn't know what was wrong with me. And then the specialist got in and they said, okay, we can sort of figure out what to do. It's going to take some brain surgery and, we'll sort of figure it out. But he's probably not going to walk again. The stroke was that severe. He's probably going to live in an unresponsive state for the rest of his life. So just prepare yourself. He's probably going to need round-the-clock care. And, he's going to be in that state to where he's going to need somebody to take care of him for the rest of his life. So, we go through this process. I'm paralyzed completely for about 2 months. There's a scar over my eye. They put a tube in my head that went up like this. And they would come in every 3 to 4 hours with a needle about this long. And they would stick into that tube and drain fluid off of my brain. Mm-mm. So it was one of those type of situations I couldn't eat. So they had to feed me through a feeding tube. And I don't know if anybody's ever been fed through a feeding tube, but they don't put you to sleep for that. They just give you the feeding, give you a cup of water until you keep swallowing. They take the feeding tube and push it up your nose, down your throat. So they would put the feeding tube in, and then maybe a couple of days I would throw up, and then they would have to do it all over again. So it was a consistent type of situation. I had tubes everywhere. They had IVs into my chest, down into my heart, trying to figure out all. So it was a crazy situation. So 2 brain surgeries later, I start getting back mobility in my limbs and my extremities, and I'll never forget one of the most monumental days of my life was my first day of physical therapy. I go to physical therapy, and I'm excited because they said I can never walk again. I'm up. I'm ready to walk. I'm ready to tackle the world. So I get to physical therapy, and the physical therapist says, today we're going to practice buttoning a shirt. And I said, I know how to button a shirt. I've been paralyzed for 2 months. I'm trying to get up and walk. I'm not here to button a shirt. She's like, no, we need to try to practice buttoning the shirt. And I said, no, I'm ready to walk. I've been literally lying in the bed, paralyzed. Forget the shirt. I know how to do it. Let's walk. We argued for about 15 minutes. She said, okay, fine. You know what? I'm going to put this shirt on you. And if you could button this shirt, we'll try to walk. And she put the shirt on me. It was a jersey. And she put a jersey on me, and my hands wouldn't function. And at that moment, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And she said something to me that was so pivotal that I think so many people go through life not understanding. She said, you don't understand the amount of trauma and what you actually have been through. You don't understand the damage that's been done to you and how we have to rewire all of your internal wirings, your internal mechanisms, because your brain knows how to do it. But everything that sends the signal down to your limbs and your extremities has to be rewired all over again. And I sat there and tears running down my face, and it was like, wow. Because you could know how to do something, but to be limited to know it and to know that you had a history of doing it. How many times did I take for granted buttoning a shirt? We never consider those moments to say, okay, I get up every morning and I get to button a shirt. It's, I put my shirt on. It's time to go.
What was your go-to? I don't want to get you off this, but I'm going to ask you, what was your go-to in that moment, your go-to thought, when you realized that you can't button your shirt?
Yeah.
And you're crying.
Yeah.
Where did your brain, because that's the beginning of the evolution of you, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So in that moment, I went through a myriad of thoughts, right? Because you're sitting there, you're realizing the damage that's been done to you, realize the severity of your situation. But now it's almost a sense of motivation because, one, they said I was going to die. I'm still here. They said I was never going to walk again and never have mobility back in my limbs. I can feel stuff. I'm moving, so we're moving in the right direction. So it's okay. I see what's happened, and I see how difficult it has been, and how difficult my situation and my circumstances and my history and everything, the prognosis, the diagnosis, everything that's been before me said that I had no chance to win. But I'm seeing traces of small wins. So, okay, cool. You said I wasn't going to walk again. You said I wasn't going to live. You said I was going to live in an unresponsive state. Okay.
So you're determined.
Yes.
Okay. Was that determination, was it there as a kid?
Yeah, I was one of those who always thrived in places where I was challenged the most. You know, it was funny. If things were too easy for me, I really didn't apply myself because it was too easy. And I remember my mom tells this story about how I wasn't doing my schoolwork. And, you know, she calls and they say, you know, Mrs. Jackson, he just won't do his work. He's so smart. He knows it. He gets it, but he just won't do it. And she asked me, she said, why you won't do it? I said, because it's too easy. It doesn't make sense. I feel like I'm wasting my time. And I'm in like grade school. And we literally went into the principal's office and she said, now they're going to ask you why you're not doing your work. I said, okay, cool. He actually said, why you not doing work? I said, because it's stupid. It's easy. He said, well, if it's that easy, just do it. So I've always been that type. If you challenge me, I have to not only rise to the challenge, I have to exceed the expectations.
Did you start doing your homework?
Yeah, I did it because then it became more so I found a way to make it more a competitive nature in me. So then it wasn't me doing my work. It was me being better than everybody else in the class.
I'm going to win.
Yeah. I'm going
to win. Were you aware and awake when did you know they thought you were going to die?
I didn't know until I started the aspect of me actually gaining awareness and consciousness, you know, like because for a while, you know, I was heavily sedated. It was so many aspects of the situation. Like my temperature degree, I don't know necessarily what it is, where you reach a certain temperature, you overheat and you die. I was like 1 degree below that. So they had me in a cooling room that was blowing cooling air, freezing cold air, and then they had a cooling blanket on top of me. So I was heavily sedated, but I'm still shivering in the rooms. It was just so much going on. But when I actually came to and start having an awareness, I start hearing conversations, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of people end up doing is you hear conversations of what people are saying about you, and you got a choice to make, right? I hear this. I can either take that as truth, or I can figure out how I can take that and manipulate that to win in this process, right? So it was one of those situations like, wow, because I never considered a moment where I would almost be out of here. It was never a thought. So to be faced with the reality that life was almost over for me, it was a different revolutionary experience. And then I start considering things even more so.
Life gets serious.
Yeah.
So when you say you're a purpose pusher,
yes.
what's that mean?
So I have made it my intentional goal to make sure that people are being purposeful and walking in purpose. Because the opposite of being purposeful is being lackadaisical. And I lived in a space where I'll get to it. It's okay. I got that. I'll do it tomorrow. It was easy, so I didn't really apply myself. But then when you realize how fragile life is, and you get to that point to you say, man, I was taking so much for granted.
So what do we do with people that are in our lives that you have an opportunity to impact that don't go through that life or death moment?
Yeah.
But they're still approaching life the way you were before.
Yeah.
How do you get them to wake up?
So I think everything happens through either lived experience or learned experience, right? All reality is adopted reality. It's the reality that you adopt. That's how you can put two people in the same situation, same home, same parents, same schooling, same love, and have two completely different outcomes. It's the reality that you adopt, right? So it's one, having people who sort of approach life like, oh, I'll get to it when you hear, because you only operate to the level of your exposure, right? So when you hear stories of like things that have happened to people, or you expose yourself, or you're around certain people, it's really almost impossible to grow in an effective way when you're surrounded by people who only cultivate the present version of you.
Can you reflect back in an honest way? I don't even know if it's healthy to ask you to do it. But let's say in 2000, that stroke didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Can you now, how intuitive and reflective and intelligent your brain and how it works, can you look back at the William in 2000?
Absolutely.
And now project where he would have ended up without that?
Yeah. I would have been the talented one who didn't work hard. Things came easy to me. So I would have had a level of success, and I would have reached a level of accomplishment, but it wouldn't be to the height of my possibility, because I still would have been able to do or get by, right? I've been naturally gifted with some qualities and characteristics that make it easy for me to get by. And that was the danger, is that even my getting by, I still could, quote unquote, do well, right? There was 11th grade, ironically. Economics was my first class in the morning, and it was just so early. I hated getting up that early. I hated it. And in the 11th grade, I think when the semester was over, I had like 60-something absences and had a 94 in the class.
That's so wrong.
So that's what I'm saying is that the difficulty in that was when you have the people who are naturally gifted, you can get complacent in your gifting and still not maximize your life. And if it wasn't for that hit the wall moment where everything comes crashing down, where now it shifts my entire perspective. I'm not who I am today. And that's why I can look back on everything and be grateful.
So how could you tell that, William, in 2000 without having this experience that there's people that go through what you went through
Mm-hmm.
and they do die?
Yeah.
That's why they thought it. See, those doctors have seen that before.
Yep.
That's how they're like, yeah, today, this one ain't looking good.
Mm-hmm.
So think of all the people that didn't get your shot.
Yep.
How do we get to them early?
Like I said, I think that, one, you have to be intentional. I think the greatest thing that parents can do is expose their kids early. Expose them to different cultures, different climates, different atmospheres, different ideas, like putting them in different situations and seeing how they respond. If I'm not exposed, if I don't have the lived experience or the learned experience, then I'm really at the mercy of however life flows. So in order to get to a place without having to have that traumatic event, I got to expose you to the possibility of that there's more.